pretty cool that McLaren picked me. Currently P1 on there. Congratulations.
If you haven't been keeping up with our vlog, then you may have missed the fact that this hasn't really been the race season to write home about for us. In particular, we've had trouble with the Ernest car. However, we're here at Highlands Motorsport Park today for the first round of the Highlands Sprint Series, and we're back behind the wheel of the Racecraft 86. Now, the last time I raced this car, that also didn't go that well, and a misshift ended up with me trying to take out a concrete block on the bridge. The bridge won. The car lost. So it didn't really end that well. Over the last few months, we've really taken our eyes off the prize in terms of the Racecraft 86 because it's been all hands on deck on the Ernest 86, the SR86. However, in the meantime, we have got the car back together. Actually, really wasn't a big deal in the end. A few new panels at the front of the car, the chassis was straight, and a little bit of love from Dr. B signage with the wrap, and it's back looking as good as ever. Took the car to the track last week and did some shakedown laps just to make sure that everything was working how it should, and it all seems pretty good. So here at the track today though, it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag for us. At the moment it is overcast and we've had a little bit of light drizzle on and off. The track however is dry. Later in the day we do have some heavy rain forecast, so we've got a set of Michelin wets. At the moment we've just swapped back over to the full slicks and we'll see how that goes. Murphy's Law here. Yesterday when we were looking at the weather forecast and looking at our options, it was looking like it was going to be pretty wet all day, so I made the call to fit up the wets while it was on the hoist, load it up on the trailer, of course get to the track and it's dry. Probably not a bad thing. So today's focus really is just going to be getting to the finish line. I couldn't care less where we come. I just want a straight car at the end of the day that still runs, something we can drive back onto the trailer. For me right now, that is going to be a success. And particularly if it does pour with rain in the afternoon, then it's really going to throw a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons there. So we've got our first practice session coming up fairly shortly. We'll be taking it pretty easy. Let's see how we go. Alright, just been out for the first practice session of the day and wouldn't you know it, we've got problems. The drive-by-wire throttle body went into fault mode, which basically means that the ECU isn't happy with the position of the throttle versus the target, and it's a safety strategy that all drive-by-wire throttle systems have, which basically closes the throttle and then you're limping along at about 20 kilometers an hour. The great thing about this is it's a brand new problem. We've had this car since it was brand new back in 2012. It's had the Motec M150 in it since about 2016, I think. And this is something we have never seen before. So always good when we're fault finding something brand new. Came back into the pits and I've just gone through a process of recalibrating the throttle pedal, went back out, trying to be time efficient here. We only had a 15-minute session. I really wanted to get some laps in. Went back out and lap in, basically did exactly the same thing. So came back in, went through the slightly more complicated process of recalibrating the throttle plate or throttle servo position. Went back out and I only got one lap in, tried to push as hard as I could, but of course no temperature in the tyres, given how little running it had. It didn't do it again, but given I only got 1.5 laps total, it's hard to say that that's sort of a guaranteed fix. However, we've got qualifying coming up, so I guess we'll push on and see how we get on. The problem with this on a racetrack though is it is actually quite a dangerous situation. Obviously the ECU needs to have a safety function in there for the drive-by-wire in case something goes wrong. That's a given. However, under race conditions, if the throttle does go into fault, all of a sudden you go to having absolutely no power. If that happens mid-corner or corner exit, can be problematic, particularly if you've got someone right up the back of you and they're not expecting you to lose all engine power. That also can be a problem. Given that this has also got push button start, I can't just quickly key it off and key it back on. It actually requires you to come to a complete stop, turn the car off and turn it back on. So you could say that this is pretty far from ideal. However, we'll battle on. Wish us luck. All right, just had the qualifying session there and it looks like recalibrating the throttle servo has worked faultless for a 15-minute session there. So just getting a feel for the car. Moving from the Hankook to the Michelin slicks has made a massive difference to the amount of grip available. So it's really just a case of finding my feet again and figuring out exactly how hard I could push. Running in Class 2, which has a breakout of 1:20, so I've actually qualified P1 with a 1:19.95, so I've actually broken out by 0.05 of a second. At this stage I am going to stay in Class 2 and what we'll do is just turn the boost down maybe 1/10 of a PSI. It's probably really all it's going to take. If I go up to Class 1, I'm racing against a McLaren 570S GT4 and that's not going to end that well for me. So I'd like to be in a class where at least there's some cars to have a little bit of a battle with. So at this point I'm quietly cautious. We've been in this position before and historically it hasn't actually worked out that well. So yeah, let's just head down and concentrate and fingers crossed for a clean race. I don't even care where I finish. Alright, first race is out of the way and I saw the checkered flag. Pretty happy. It's been a long time since I've seen a checkered flag. The car still goes, so I'm going to actually take that as a win. Ultimately I came second in class, but I ended up breaking out on one lap. I ended up stupidly getting stuck with a battle with a Porsche GT4 that was in a class ahead of me. So I don't really know why I got drawn into that battle. It didn't really make any difference to me, but obviously I didn't turn the boost down far enough because battling with that Porsche, I did a 1:19.75, so 0.25 under the breakout. So after that, realised the error of my ways and decided to just let the Porsche go and concentrate on clean laps. And I did that, stayed under the break or over the breakout. There's another car in my class that was breaking out pretty much every lap, a little EG Civic. It's really fast. Not actually sure what's in it, but he was doing 18s in the end. So he's broken out, I think, just about every lap, well ahead of me. So ultimately, at the moment, on paper, I think I came second in that race, but like I say, car still goes, saw the checkered flag, ready for another race. That is a win, really happy. So at the moment the weather is a little bit marginal. On the last lap of that race we started seeing a few spots of rain on the windscreen. It hasn't amounted to anything just yet, but the sky is looking pretty dark, particularly looking out to the north. There is some pretty dark clouds out that way. So the forecast is for it to absolutely pour down around 1 PM. If that does happen, honestly not that much I'm looking forward to it, but it is what it is, and that's really going to throw a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons, because really at that point it's a whole different ball game. And with this car, I haven't actually had a lot of experience in the wet either, so it's going to be a pretty steep learning curve. Anyway, happy so far. Let's see if we can keep the luck continuing for a whole day. All right, race 2 done and dusted. After race 1 still breaking out, even with the boost turned down, we made the decision to jump up to Class 1, which is a bit of a shame, because in Class 1 I'm really not going to be that competitive. We've got a couple of GT3 Porsches, we've got a McLaren 570S GT4, so it's not really a fair battle. There is a Porsche Cayman GT4 in that class that I'm really competitive with though, and realistically it's just not fair sitting at the top of that Class 2 if I am breaking out. So went into Class 1, turned the boost back up, and went out with some pretty high expectations, and it was looking really good. I had a really good battle with a Callaway Porsche Cayman GT4, ended up pressuring him I think enough that he ended up making a little mistake and I got past him. It was about probably 3 laps into the race. Unfortunately, not long after I got past him, I had almost no power, and looking at the boost on the dash, it looked like I had none, so I suspected that probably the boost hose had fallen off, so that's exactly what it panned out to be. I was so close to the end of the race, I just circulated anyway and got another finish, so 2 finishes under my belt from 2 starts. Not exactly the finish I was hoping for in that particular race, but we've still seen the checkered flag 2 out of 2 times. I'm going to still take that as a win. So we're getting that boost hose sorted out, and we'll head back out for race 3 shortly. Given that I ended up finishing well down the field because of that lack of boost, I'm going to be starting from a fair way back on the grid, so I'm going to have a bit of work to do getting past a few of the cars, but it should be a bit of fun anyway. Race 3 done and dusted, and got to see the checkered flag 3 out of 3 times. Pretty pumped on that. So that race didn't quite go how I expected. I was actually a little bit wrong. It was a reverse grid per class, so because of my problems with no boost in race 2, I actually started P1, which is a pretty scary place to be with some fast McLarens and Porsches around me. Obviously wasn't expecting to retain that position to the end of the race, but I was also going to make that Toyota 86 as wide as I possibly could. Got a really good start and managed to actually get into a pole. I managed to hold off the Porsche GT4 that was beside me through the first few corners, settled into a bit of a rhythm over that first lap, and everything sort of panned out. Obviously there was some passing going on behind me. In the end, a couple of laps in, had the McLaren GT4 and a little EG Civic catch up with me. Porsche managed to get past me as well, and that was where things got a little bit exciting. Now this car for some reason has been suffering today from some pretty bad fuel surge. it's actually gotten worse through the 3 races. So there's a little bit of investigation to do here. In the first race, which was 6 laps, we sort of had a problem in the last lap and it was pretty mild. Pretty much the same thing in the second race, but then when I had no boost, it was pretty hard to push on anyway, so not really a fair indication of what was happening. For race 3, we had this thing absolutely topped off with fuel. It had all of the 50 litres that the fuel tank holds and as much more as we could get in it. It was just about filled to overflowing. The guys actually had jacked the car a little bit in the air to get as much fuel into it as possible. So I started off with the best possible scenario. About the time the McLaren 570S GT4 caught up with me, I actually ended up suffering from fuel surge again, and this is only 2 to 3 laps in, so pretty baffling. Obviously need to go and look a little bit harder about what is actually going on here. And that was actually ended up becoming a bit of a problem though. Coming out of the forest hairpin, I had the McLaren behind me, I had the EG Civic behind me, and coming out of that hairpin, the McLaren got a bit of a run. As soon as I came out of the corner and got onto full throttle, I got fuel surge, and basically it was like someone turned the key off. All of the power went away. And of course the McLaren behind me was expecting me to accelerate out of the corner, as you would, as I had 2 laps previously. So he was getting into the throttle, and of course it was basically like me hitting the brakes. He had nowhere to go, so he's actually just caught the left rear corner. Hasn't really done too much damage to our car. It's bent the Tomei titanium exhaust, which sucks a little bit, but that's not the end of the world. It's done no chassis damage, and basically just made a little, pushed the rear bumper out of location. Our problem is because it's damaged the Tomei muffler and sort of crushed that in, it ended up pointing at the bumper, so it's actually melted a section out of the bumper skin as well. Pretty minor, I'd say by looking at the front of the GT4 McLaren, he probably is going to have a slightly more expensive repair bill than us. We've got a 12-lap race coming up. Given the dramas with fuel surge there, that's obviously not going to get any better over a 12-lap race, and this can actually be quite dangerous depending where you lose power. Even with that situation coming out of the hairpin, we got off really lightly and it could have been much worse. So I think given the situation at the moment, we can be pretty happy with the results. The car is fast, mechanically it's intact, we've got a fuel surge issue that we need to work through, and realistically that was on our list for this car anyway. We were going to fit a fuel surge tank in the boot as well, so that's something that's already on the list. We're probably just going to bring that forward a little bit, but all things considered, I'm pretty happy. This is the best race meeting so far of the year, and even that being said, it hasn't gone exceptionally well. So a few things to work on, and I think we'll be back next weekend for another crack at it.
If you like that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you're subscribed. We release a new video every week. And if you like free stuff, we've got a great deal for you. Click the link in the description to claim your free spot to our next live lesson.